Sam Armstrong and myself have been joined in the studio now by Tim Montgomery. He's a former number 10 advisor under the Conservatives. He's now a member of Reform UK and joins us. Morning to you.
Morning.
I want to talk to you about why is it that Reform UK seem to be utterly incapable, despite being elected with 5 Reform UK MPs last July, keeping 5 MPs. They lost one and they got another one, and now they've lost one again. We've seen the resignation of the party whip from James McMurdock as the MP for South Basildon and East Thurrock, removed the party whip from himself amid claims reported in the Sunday Times that he had basically, I think the allegation is that his bounce back loans that were issued during the pandemic amounting to £70,000 for 2 companies he owned were in some way taken under circumstances that were not entirely legal. I think that is or acceptable. I think that is the allegation. I don't want to add to any libels or anything. He has said all his business dealings have been conducted fully within the law and in compliance with all regulation. But as a precautionary measure for the protection of the Reform UK party, he's asked for the whip to be suspended. What is going on?
Well, look, I don't want to particularly cover the individual allegations because I don't know the truth of them. They need to be investigated speedily and by proper process. But what obviously is an issue is that this, as you've suggested, keeps happening to Reform. And Nigel Farage, if we were operating under a presidential or a mayoral system, I'd be incredibly confident that Reform could win the next general election. Nigel Farage is one of the most impressive, formidable personalities in British politics of the last quarter of a century. But of course, Julia, we don't operate under that system. We operate under a parliamentary system. And the biggest challenge for Reform is to find 300 to 350 parliamentary candidates who stand up to scrutiny. Now, what happened with James McMurdock was he won in a seat the Reform didn't expect to win at the last
And then
election.
it was discovered that he had a history, we had a conviction involving domestic abuse.
And he hadn't gone through the kind of vetting procedure that is now in place.
That's kind of quite basic, isn't it? Do you
well,
have a
it's
criminal
now in
conviction
place,
of any sort?
now in place, not just for parliamentary candidates Reform, it was in place for the selection of our council candidates in the last sort of local elections round. And why we are investing as a party so much in local elections, in next year's Welsh and Scottish elections, is because it's from this group of people that we hope to test people, understand people, get to know people, so that we can actually put forward a number of candidates to the British people the next election that we know are not going to sort of represent, in all likelihood, James McMurdock type problems.
Not just going to be a a Reform MP, a local MP, but possibly going into government. If the polls are right, you know, you could be either in a majority or some sort of a coalition with the Conservatives or whoever. I know you're all saying you won't, but let's face it, if the numbers stacked up the way they may well stack up,
that would be for the British people to decide.
That would be, yeah, all of that. But at the end of the day, some of you are going to have to go into government. Now, is it that Reform UK struggles more than any other party to get quality candidates? Are you under more scrutiny than other parties, so you can have some absolutely useless backbench Tory or Labour or Lib Dem MP that no one's noticed, so no one's looking into, whereas we've got a load of organisations that spend all day, every day, trying to find everything and anything that anyone in Reform has ever said?
I think it's a bit of both, probably. And I think you introduced me as a former Conservative. I remember being sat in this studio, not least with you on occasions, defending the latest scandal that had encountered the last Tory government. Labour, we all know they're facing a number of scandals.
We had Damien Green on earlier, as former Deputy Prime Minister, called watching porn in his office, for goodness sake.
And had to resign from his position, or was sacked by Theresa May for, you know, so all parties have trouble. I think because Reform is such a young party, you know, it's only been in existence a relatively short period of time, we haven't had in place the kind of procedures that I've just described that are now in place to guard against this kind of incident.
I'm wondering how parties do guard against this. I mean, we've seen this, again, I think with all political parties. I've been a political journalist for many years, watching scandal after scandal. But it does seem to me, I mean, that's one of the things I've always felt very strongly about, people who took help during the pandemic. I've always thought that Rishi Sunak, when he was Chancellor at the time, when he announced we're going to give help, we're going to give their bounce back loans, we're going to be giving furlough, I think there should be an announcement at the time and a law change. God, they were throwing through any law they wanted at the time. Anyone caught taking money they don't need under any fraudulent basis faces 10 years behind bars. Nothing to discuss, not 5 years, not 10 years, and you will serve all 10 years. Because I thought that, you know, there was so much money. We are in the financial straits we're in right now because of all that money. But if it was for companies, if it was businesses that needed it, there is a big question mark. I mean, again, It may have been legal, what he did. It may have been, as he said, in compliance with all regulations. But we're talking about a 50 grand loan is alleged to have received one business with an annual... which basically, you know, didn't appear to have any employees and negligible assets until the pandemic, and a company that was dormant, 70 grand in total. There are big question marks about this, but he wasn't the only one. If he did do this, he wasn't the only one, and that money was thrown around, wasn't it? Do you think, though, that this is indicative of the problems that your party, your new party now, is going to have? Is that actually you're going to struggle to find enough people who are going to be whiter than white, who are going to pass muster?
I think it's going to be a challenge. I think it's the #1 challenge that the party faces, to select these candidates. But, Julia, we won over 850 council seats this year. Those council candidates are already under enormous scrutiny.
We've already had one resign.
2 or 3 have resigned, mainly through ill health rather than anything sort of untoward. But the candidate process that we are now operating, you don't have to wait till the next general election. It's already in operation. So journalists such as yourself at Talk and in other organisations can examine the people we are selecting. So there is
you understand the frustration feel, though. Oh, God, there's another potential scandal again. He's denied any wrongdoing. We need to stress that.
I can more than understand it.
It can't be more than just Nigel Farage as a one-man band.
I feel it myself. I was there coming up on Saturday to do a Times radio interview, you know, downstairs, and I thought, my goodness, I'm going to have to defend this now. Yeah. It's a perennial problem. Yeah, I feel it as well, and I can't stress enough how much of the limited resources Reform have are going into solving this problem. We know that the British people will expect us to have a slate of candidates that stand up to scrutiny, and they deserve it, and we make sure we will.
Sam Armstrong's still with us. Now, you're a Conservative. Are Reform, though, under more scrutiny? Because, my God, there are an awful lot of people, I've got question marks raised about the Tories, the Labour. You've got a load of MPs no one notices.
The sad truth is, no, it's 40% of Reform's MPs have gone wrong. And I do take issue with what Tim here says, which is that, we need to get candidates that stand up to scrutiny. Nigel Farage recognises that this country's in dire straits, and he wants to completely reset the British state. It's a huge job, will require 120 ministers that don't just stand up to scrutiny, but are actually seriously good, capable people
offence,
as well.
But your lot had loads of experience and had all those candidates vetted, and you did a shockingly bad job, as indeed of the current lot. I mean, that would be the argument I'd make. Tim Montgomery, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for coming into the studio from Reform UK member now.